Since the inception of EToH, formerly known as JToH, formerly known as KToH, which has been over 9 years, by the way, we have seen numerous huge accomplishments in the game. From the first soul-crushing tower beaten, to pushing the limits of the physics engine on Roblox, let's look through the complete history of the hardest towers in EToH. Chapter 1. Humble Beginnings. KToH, the original place for EToH, started off with only one tower. That tower was the Tower of Heck, a hard difficulty tower in Ring 1, and the tower to start the game off. So, because this was the first tower, and subsequently the first tower to be beaten, it would obviously be the first ever hardest tower in EToH. Fun fact, the lobby for KToH at this time was just floor 1 of ToH, so that's why floor 1 of ToH is whatever the Ring 1 lobby music is. July through September of 2018 saw the creation of the entirety of Ring 1 at the time, and the tower to be added after ToH, which was also harder than ToH, was Tower of Screen Punching, which was difficulty at the time, but now we know it has been moved to challenging. Tower of Impossible Expectations was added afterwards in August, originally hard difficulty, then moved to question mark difficulty, then Good Luck Buddy, which is equivalent to Intense and Remorseless today, which is where it stayed before what I will be calling the Great Difficulty Chart Update, which will also be referred to as the pre-GDCU era and the post-GDCU era. An important revelation hit during this time period, the Tower Creation Kit, allowing the community members to make their own towers. In September, the first mega update came out for KToH, revamping the Ring 1 lobby and, more importantly to what we're talking about, added new and even harder towers to the game. It was around this time that a new difficulty was added, question mark, not to be confused with the previous question mark difficulty, which was reserved for Tower of Confusion. In the meantime, Tower 2 Skill was added, being moved to the Good Luck Buddy difficulty, and being even harder than ToIE. This would be the next hardest tower added to the game. So far, our 3 hardest towers are Tower 2 Skill, Tower of Impossible Expectations, and Tower of Rage, which was added in said mega update. Today, these towers don't even come close to cracking the soul-crushing difficulties of today's EToH. But skilled hobbyists didn't exist during this time, and it would be a bit before we seen an explosion of them. Later in September of 2018, Tower of Confusion was added, and then quickly removed from Ring 1 due to extreme lag issues caused by the tower. On September 17th of 2018, the second mega update released, including a Ring Select and most importantly, Ring 2. This added the Tower of Eternal Suffering, which is harder than Tower of 2 Skill, so it is the new hardest tower, but it won't be the last we'll see in 2018. Chapter 2. The Breakthrough. In October of 2018, there was a serious breakthrough in the hardest tower scene. Tower of Difficulty Chart by Itnir, the first Godspeed tower to stay in an area and not be removed, had been added. Godspeed is the first soul-crushing difficulty, taking the same color as Terrifying, and spanning the 3 easiest soul-crushing difficulties we have today. With the first soul-crushing being added, it would only be a matter of time before players build and beat even harder towers. In November of 2018, Ring 3 was released, taking Tower of Confusion with it. Tower of Confusion was one of the most important towers to the story, with it being the first Godspeed tower technically added, even though it was removed, then added again. The first 3 floors make up most of its difficulty, and it has unmarked conveyors all throughout it, constantly keeping you on your toes. Ring 3 also brought the first tower made by Jupiter 5, Tower of Winning Every Run, aka Tower. In December, Tower of Laptop Splitting became Citadel of Laptop Splitting, version 3 of the kit was released, and, most importantly, Juke became the co-owner of KToH. This also marked the start of the post-GDCU era, splitting up Godspeed into 4 difficulties: Insane, Extreme, Terrifying, and Never Again. In January of 2019, Ring 4 was released, dragging in Tower of Inception with it, marking a new hardest tower in KToH. In February, Ring 5 was added, bringing in Tower of Frightening Nightmares with it, which was second to Tower of Inception. And then, it happened. The pivotal moment that changed the path of this game forever. Chapter 3. Jupiter's Inferno. In March of 2019, Kitty Cannon, the owner of KToH, deleted the game for various reasons, leaving it to Juke. Juke decided to take the game under her own leadership, which would turn out to be the most important decision of the game and also alter the course of this video forever. Without this moment happening, I wouldn't be sitting here writing this script, recording this voice line, or editing this video. You also wouldn't be here watching this video without this moment. Even though Juke may not have been the best owner, she sure did save KToH from a seemingly unavoidable death. Along with this change, Cal started development, and Thanos Tower was finished and added to Ring 1, which wasn't harder than Tower Confusion, but was still extremely hard at the time. March saw a sloppy release for Ring 6, which made it close almost immediately, but after a bit of fixing, Ring 6 officially released in April of 2019. Around the same time, Never Again, the difficulty above Terrifying, was renamed to Unreal, then later the same day it got renamed to Catastrophic. Ring 6 also came with the new third hardest tower, Tower of Impossible Movement, and was placed at Insane, then got moved to Extreme, then later Terrifying, following the same path as Tower of Frightening Nightmares. There were no new hardest towers added until 2020, but that tower would change everything. On January 25th of 2020, Ring 7 was released, and with it brought the most monstrous tower ever conceived at the time, the Tower of Elongated Runs. With multiple insta-kill sections and outsides that can end runs, this tower was an absolute beast. At the time, this tower was considered terrifying difficulty, which is a far cry from the high-peak catastrophic difficulty that it currently resides in. I will not include this tower right now as it will not be verified for a while, and it would be unfair for me to place it already. With ToER off the table for now, and the zones starting too late to get a kata by the next area, we would have to wait. The hunt for catastrophic was still ongoing, but all of that would change with one single update. Chapter 4, the final difficulty. For this segment, I thought it was only fair to take a small dive into the first catastrophic tower and how it was conquered. On July 8th of 2020, Ring 8 was released to the public, and it came bearing gifts for all elite hobbyists. Not only was it miles better than the previous rings, but there was also another catastrophic tower in the game. This is the Tower of Generation Failure. Immediately, people got to work, and they made progress. Two of the biggest roadblocks for players in this tower were Floor 6 and Floor 9 outside. Floor 6 is a very hard and very long floor. There's a singular GBJ jump on this floor, which is very easy, but the raw difficulty is crazy. This floor is also home to the hardest jump of the tower, the Force Stud Stick Out. Floor 9 outside is also super hard, and is home to some of the most infamous fails in JToH history. It is also the part that contains the cant jump, a weird wraparound long jump that the player cant 2005 failed the first time getting there. On July 10th, 2020, cant had a breakthrough and completed Tower of Generation Failure. But cant had a problem. He technically cheated the tower. The method he used is checkpoint abuse. To prevent players from skipping entire towers, the JToH devs introduced invisible buttons called checkpoints they have to hit throughout the entire tower to beat it. cant managed to gain access to a copy of the tower to find all of the checkpoints, skipping all of the hardest sections. So, in September of 2020, cant 2005 got permanently banned from the game. No worries though, MyFart, also known as MyFarado, was the first true legit victor of Tower of Generation Failure, putting an end to the hunt for the first catastrophic. cant later got unbanned, by the way. So, with the new hardest tower being of the last difficulty, the only way to go from here was to push to the edge of the difficulty chart. In December of 2020, MyFart beat the Tower of Elongated Runs, putting a temporary stop on trying to beat harder towers. There would then be an update that would add even more difficult towers, shaking up the obvious scene. On the 22nd of April 2020, Ring 9 was released, adding the Tower of Champions Road, a high catastrophic, and most importantly, Tower of Cruel Punishment, a peak catastrophic tower sitting at the highest point on the difficulty chart. And after 2 whole months of grinding, and a grueling final stretch to top it off, MyFart did it again and beat the Tower of Cruel Punishment, marking the end of the hardest towers as we know them. Wait, this isn't the end of the video? Well, there's one thing I forgot to point out. Chapter 5, Beyond the Chart. With the Tower of Cruel Punishment being verified, the community was hungry for more. They wanted even harder towers, and they weren't going to stop at catastrophic. So, they decided to take matters into their own hands. 2 more exponentially harder difficulties were conceived, Horrific and Unreal, containing towers that literally push the physics engine to its limits, with gameplay that no normal person could ever come up with, manipulating Roblox physics like a puppet to a puppeteer. Now, how long would it take for someone to break past this barrier that now seems impossible, you may ask? 15 months, a whole 1 year and 3 months after Cruel Punishment, we finally got the first Horrific. Well, kinda. Marcus Terry, a well-known cheater, beat the Tower of Vacant Hindrances with a replay mod on July 18th of 2021, which isn't even considered horrific today. To get to Horrific, we need to travel to March of 2022. On March 20th of 2022, Pit of Misery was released, making Horrific and Unreal officially a part of EToH, through the 4 Horrific towers and the 2 Unreals added, soon to be 3. Let's take a look at the Tower of Eternal Void, a mid-high Horrific tower in Pit of Misery. On July 24th of 2022, Skitsuna verified ToID, becoming the first person to beat a horrific that is still considered horrific today. If you didn't know, ToID is the first 10 floors of the original Citadel of Void, but nerfed. This means that floor 9, which is nil in Citadel of Void, is now catastrophic difficulty. Each floor ranges from insane to catastrophic difficulty, with the added difficulty balancing out to mid-high horrific. After this completion, pros were stumped to say the least. Did they go for something higher and horrific, or jump straight to Unreal? Well, we wouldn't have to wait long for an answer. The Citadel of Infinite Void is easily the most intimidating humanly possible tower in the entirety of Roblox. With 12 floors of borderline impossible gameplay that spans an hour and a half, this Citadel is nothing to laugh at. Not to mention, a lot of the gameplay is over insta-kills, so most of the gameplay has to be done perfectly. Almost instantly after Skitsuna beat ToEV, the Infinite Void grind was on. With Skit's prior experience with Citadel of Infinite Void, he made a quick work of the Citadel. But, unfortunately, someone beat him to first victor. Someone called Literature Death, an unknown player, had beaten COID without even recording it. Most people called it unlegit, and it was eventually ruled unlegit by the Top Towers community. So, with Skit being one of the only people left who are trying to beat this, we didn't have to wait long to find a first victor. And on October 9th, 2023, Skitsuna verified the first ever Unreal Tower, marking the end of the race for the first Unreal. This isn't the end of the journey though, as we have one more tower to go over, and it is pure insanity. Chapter 6, Impending Doom. Tower Impending Doom is a low Unreal tower made by pczm, Forsaken, the Player Slayer, Mikolajol, I guess, Walrus, Skitsuna, Celeste, and Demolisher 11, and is currently the hardest tower ever beaten in the game. This section is going to be a very, very short summary of pczm's video on Tower of Impending Doom, and it is one of the greatest EToH videos I have ever watched. I highly recommend watching it. pczm deserves all the praise. So, after pczm and all others finished building ToID, people started to race to beat it and made quick progress. This tower works like Citadel of Void, where each floor has its own unique difficulty, and that gets averaged out with the length of each floor to come up with its official difficulty. Not to mention that if you fail once, your run is most likely over. With some floors being horrific difficulty, this can get draining fast. Henixel managed to get to floor 6 on April of 2024, which is pretty good progress for now. He then managed to get to floor 7, passing his own world record, but the attempt unfortunately wasn't recorded. Also in April, A6IQ and Skitsuna started to try to beat ToID. Skit dropped the tower shortly after picking it up, but A6IQ kept at it. And A6IQ finally managed to get to floor 6 in December of 2024, over half a year after the last floor 6 attempt occurred. A6IQ got to floor 7 one day after getting to floor 6. Suro talked about trying to join the race in April, but said he would need more skill before getting into it. The next major progress happened in January of 2025, with Suro getting floor 10 and even getting to the second half of the floor. Keep in mind that floor 10 has fading platforms and is over insta-kills, so in some sections you are forced to rush while being at your most nervous point. People, at this point, had agreed that not even fully completing this tower and instead getting to the point Suro got to was way harder than COIV, which is the second hardest tower currently in the game. With Suro getting this devastating fail, A6IQ and Durican, a player that I had not previously mentioned, started to play the tower again and get some practice in. But just a day later, Suro would get to floor 10 again, and what he did next was legendary. Yeah, he failed floor 10 again. But what did you expect? It's the hardest tower in the entirety of Roblox, and you thought he was going to beat it on his second floor 10 attempt? Unfortunately, after this fail, Suro had a drought in runs and wouldn't make it back to floor 10 for another 2 months, leaving A6IQ and Durican to progress further. A6IQ managed to get 2 floor 10 attempts on the 21st and 24th of February, but both of the runs ended with very stupid fails that would only occur with nerves. A6IQ would go on to never get back to floor 10 again, until the tower was verified, putting an end to his part of the verification race. This would all change with one player joining the race. Greenbean1421 is a player known for an insane come-up story, from being the first person to be a catastrophic on mobile to beating towers like Tower of Spiraling Fates and Citadel of Infinite Void on a computer. he really has mastered both devices. So when Green failed right before the final stretch on 10, it wasn't really a surprise that he made it that far already. He then failed the start of the final stretch, which is the last section of the tower and completely over insta-kill. Durican managed to get to floor 10 finally, but he failed the no-jump section, ending his run. Green had just gotten potentially the worst fail in EToH history. So, more motivated than ever, he pushed forwards. And on this very attempt, Green got to floor 10, the final stretch, then the last jump of the entire tower. Do or die, it was all up to this moment.
Oh my gosh!
Greenbean 1421 verified the Tower of Impending Doom on May 11, 2025, putting an end to this tower and the journey portrayed through this video at the moment. But the video isn't over yet. We still have one more thing to talk about. Chapter 7, Future Possibilities. So, with Low Unreal being verified, what could come next? One of the most famous examples is a Citadel Void at High Hill, but that's realistically not possible for a human to do in one run. So, what gives? Tower of Wigglecore and Tower of Paradise are both not much more difficult than ToID when it comes to the difficulty chart, but due to their length, the raw difficulty of the gameplay is way higher. Tower of Ohio Melon is another example of this dilemma. It's not much more difficult than ToID when it comes to where it's placed on the difficulty chart, but it's a lot shorter and therefore it has harder raw difficulty. So, the closest thing that we have and that I could find is Tower of It Never Ends, found in the Eternal Abyss and sitting at mid-high Unreal. It's 45 minutes long and is more accessible compared to the shorter Unreals. But, from no difficulties Tower of Tedious and stodgy to Malicious's Chaotic Tower, there's no telling where human possibility could end. Only time can tell where we end up and where we continue from. This was a Hexium documentary. Thanks for watching and see you next time.